Hi guys, and welcome to Journey to Grandmasters, a place where you can improve every aspect of your chess life. We're gonna play a training game and I'm gonna comment every one of my decisions so you can take the most of it in terms of calculating the variations, in terms of strategy, some key chess principles. So yeah, hopefully it's gonna be very useful for you, only relevant stuff here. So I'm gonna play the Philidor defense, the openings that I really like and recommend. I have made a video about it, and this time I'm gonna try it in a real game. And so my opponent places the main line, which is knight c3 here, and e5. Now there is a choice between d takes e and going into this endgame, or play knight f3, which is the main line. Well, my pawn is hanging, so I have to defend it, but at the same time, I always should try to continue my development and spending only one piece, only one move on each piece. So that is why I'm developing this knight instead of, for example, playing knight f to d7, which would be a second move with the same piece. This way I'm developing faster. And now, well, he plays g3. It's a completely possible line. The main one is bishop c4. But g3, bishop g2 is also very solid, very interesting, so let's see how it goes. Well, my plan, and that's the best thing about the Philidor defense, is that I'm always doing the same thing. Bishop e7, castles, c6, I'm attacking on the queen side, and yeah, trying to make sure that nothing horrible happens in the center. So let's see. Well, white usually tries to start some attack on the king side, maybe with a move f4, maybe going to the center, yeah, like rook e1. But I guess I can just play b5 here. Only thing that I should be very careful about is that white might play d5, and then when I take, knight takes, queen takes, my rook is hanging here. Remember that there are no pawns anymore as I have played b5. But normally what happens is there is a bishop which is also attacking the b5 pawn, and then it's very annoying. But this time there is no bishop there, so I can just play rook b8 in the end, defend that pawn on b5, and yeah, then it should work pretty good. So b5, d5, I'm exchanging it, pawn takes, knight takes, queen takes. Now attacking the rook here, I'm playing rook b8 and my pawn on b5 is protected. Next move I can just play knight f6 with a tempo, or maybe even bishop b7 with a tempo, and yeah, that should work fine. Otherwise, I'm just getting a lot of space. Maybe I want to play b4 and push this knight somewhere back. So yeah, that should work pretty good here. Let's see what the opponent is gonna do. Yeah, a3 is a very typical way to stop it. Now, if I play a5, it doesn't really re-establish the threat of b4 because my rook on a8 is pinned. So I guess I'm gonna play bishop b7 first, develop my bishop, make sure that there is no d5 problem, and also defend my rook. So once I play a5, I really threaten to play b4. What my opponent can do now is to play knight h4 with an idea to go to f5. As my bishop is not controlling the square anymore, I can't really exchange it. But what I can do is play rook e8 and bishop f8 to save my bishop here, because even though it seems like this bishop is very passive here, it's really important in terms of making sure that nothing bad happens on the board. But my opponent plays bishop g5. Yeah, so bishop is very important in terms of these dark squares, and also here it helps to deal with the pin. There is no pin. I can actually just play h6 and ask a question like, what do you want? Why are you playing bishop g5 here? Or I can just ignore it altogether because, well, it doesn't create any difficulties for me. If I play h6 and it takes, well, I have to take with a bishop probably because my pawn on e5 would be hanging if I take with a knight. But taking with the bishop is also completely fine. I guess afterwards he's gonna play d5, trying to close my pieces all together. So I can also play queen c7, which is very typical in terms of defending this pawn on e5, and then if he takes, I can take it back with a knight. But once again, the problem is this move d5, which then would be a bit annoying as my queen would be on c7, and I might run into some tempi. But actually, it doesn't seem like it's bad for me in the end of the day. So I guess I'm going to just continue the development. The bad thing here is that now my bishop is unprotected. So it might, play a role in some variation. So I have to be careful with that. My opponent takes. And the rule about the Philidor defense, normally whenever your opponent takes on e5 and you're not losing immediately, then it's a good sign. It means that you don't have any opening difficulties anymore. So for example, I'm taken back, and now he exchanges d4 for a d6 pawn, but d4 was much more active, controlling the whole center, and d6, yeah, was just annoying for me, not allowing me to develop my pieces, and now I can. So actually this exchange is very good for me. Now I can just play h6 and ask this question again. Knight takes is possible, or I can just jump all the way to c5 and then maybe come to e6 with a tempo, and also d4 would be a nice square for me to jump afterwards. So yeah, let me do it, why not? If he plays b4, I just continue with knight e6. Otherwise, yeah, like out of the opening, I don't see any difficulties for me at all, even though my opponent is really high level, 2370 his rating is, but well, I'm feeling very comfortable because I know my opponent very good, I understand it very good, what's the most important thing is, and that is why I can't really get into any troubles in the first like 10, 15, 20 moves. There are exceptions, of course. I'm not saying that I know everything, but for all of the main lines, I understand where to move my pieces. And it's not that difficult either, because it's literally almost the same thing every time again. And if you understand this one system well, then you're good to go. So now knight e6, I'm attacking this bishop, but I'm not even sure I want to exchange, because I mean knight d4 seems to be such a tempting thing to do. And also at some point I might play the move a5, attacking this b4 pawn, and if you defend it, it's not that convenient because you have to go back with a rook, with a knight, and if you take it, then I'm gonna attack this weakness on a3 afterwards. For example, here, I might just play a5, I don't see any drawback of that, and ask some questions like, what are you gonna do? Because knight a2 is also not possible. I'm gonna take it, and then either a3 is gonna be lost, or the knight on a2 itself, because my rook is gonna be opened. So I really like the a5 idea. Otherwise, I don't see any problems along the d-file. Yes, my opponent is controlling it, and I can fight against it, but for now, it seems more promising for me to attack on the queen side. And by the way, it's also a very, very typical idea in this opening, so I'm not doing anything that is like crazy here. It's one of the main plans. The e5 pawn is well protected by my queen, that is why the queen is also great on c7, and also, well, I don't have any difficulties with the rook here along the d-file. C6 pawn is incredibly important, probably the most important thing in this entire system, because it makes sure that this knight doesn't jump here to d5, it would be just horrible for me. Yes, this bishop is not that active for the moment, but who cares? I mean, this one is also not doing anything there on g2. At the right moment, I can exchange this knight for a bishop, getting a bishop's advantage, but for now I don't really see a necessity to do it fast, because I really like my knight here, it's controlling so much stuff. And the biggest question here is what white is gonna do with this b4 pawn now. I really never want to play c5 because it's gonna weaken my squares here, my pawn on b5, but a5 is really great here, opening up my rook. Because remember, you don't really need to move your piece to develop it, because on a8 the rook was completely passive. After the move a5, the rook immediately plays and is very active here. So my opponent decides to go back to b1, wasting a tempo but saving a pawn. And I can take now, and then the b4 is gonna be a weakness, like for the time being here, because there is no way, like the knight has to move, and c3 has to be played, and only afterwards this pawn is gonna be secure. Also, at some point I might really jump to d4 with my knight. So I guess I have to take first, because, well, that's the point. Now this b4 pawn always has to be protected, otherwise I'm gonna win it. And now also the a file is under black's control. I can play rook a3 with the tempo, but then knight will go to d1 with an idea to play c3, which, yeah, was essentially the point, I guess. So I don't see any necessity to do that. So the principal question is whether I exchange this bishop or not, whether I go to d4 straight away and exchange it pretty much for the knight, because I guess you can't leave with such a knight on d4 on the board. So he's gonna take, I'm gonna take it with a pawn. The only square for the knight to go is d1, which is very passive for a moment, but I guess the point is to play c3 afterwards. and maybe e5, and also opening up this bishop. So yeah, there are some drawbacks. But I might also just play rook d1 for now, and then after knight d4 takes, I can take it with the rook, and the rook would be very active here, attacking the b4 pawn, and the bishop on g2 is still useless. I pretty much like this plan, so I'm gonna play rook d8. Also remember that this rook went to b1, now not controlling the file, and I could use it. Now I'm in full control of this file. He can play rook d1, yeah, he's doing that. But I'm curious where the knight is going. I mean, the same variation here, knight d4, knight takes, pawn takes, and then the knight has no squares to go. It's literally, well, there is e5 move. That's the problem, I guess, because it's attacking my knight. If it goes somewhere, then the knight is perfect on e4. Otherwise, if I take, he takes here, and that's not a great variation for me. So e5 is really annoying. I might play h6 though and push this bishop somewhere back. Because if it goes to e3, I can continue with knight g4. Yeah, I pretty much like it. If I take on d1, he can just take with the queen, and yeah, queen is great there. I can put my rook on d8 with the tempo, but well, I also like it on the a file. Although afterwards, I might jump to d4 finally. This queen will go somewhere like e1, knight d4. Probably you still take, knight takes, and knight e2. Rook c4, c3. No, I guess I'm gonna just play h6 for now. Maybe I have to be a little bit faster, because otherwise I'm gonna run out of time. And yeah, this knight is now coming to d4, and I really like my bishop because it's supporting it. It's not attacking the pawn anymore, but well, I can always go back and attack it again. Otherwise, it feels like only black can have any active ideas here. Okay, he takes. I'm gonna take with the rook. Because, yeah, okay, he goes there. But who's gonna protect this b4 pawn now? So I can still play knight d4, takes. Now e5 is not possible because he doesn't have enough defenders. And the knight has to go somewhere like b1. Then I'm gonna attack this pawn on b4. Yeah, there are still some drawbacks, but I guess that's the most active thing that I have here. I mean, it's gonna simplify the life for him too. Maybe I should just play bishop e7 back and once again ask a question, how do you defend this b4 pawn? And maybe bishop e7, rook takes, I can't even take with a queen, because after knight takes e5, I have queen d4, attacking both of the knights, and I don't see a way to save both of them. Okay, so let me do that. Now I guess he has to take, otherwise how do you continue? And I guess his idea, okay, knight a2. And he wants to play c3 if I go rook a8. Okay. That's a good point. I mean, still the knight would be very, very passive there, but at least c3 would protect the pawn and protect the d4 square. Maybe finally I would be able to play c5 because the knight is not coming back to d5 in every case. So let me do it. And I'm gonna speed up a little bit, not just to lose on time. c3 and now c5. Yeah, I just have 1 minute. Just realize that I don't have any increments, so I really have to be fast from now on. I mean, the position is not that difficult, but still there are so many moves, so many opportunities. The bishop is now opened, so that's a good thing. If he takes, I can take it with a knight and with a bishop. Not sure which one is better. Probably with a knight because it's a tempo move. If he doesn't take, I guess I want to play c4 and make sure that this knight is horribly passive for the entire lifetime. And also he always has to protect it, which is annoying. I guess he's gonna take on c5. That seems to be more reasonable. But what I don't like is that knight will have this b4 square to come to d5 eventually, and that's annoying for me. Maybe I should play rook a3 to attack this a3 immediately and make sure that, well, if he wants to go to b4, he should sacrifice the pawn, but my pawn on b5 is also hanging. So yeah, I guess he really has to take on c5, otherwise that would be a positional mistake. I mean, maybe he's calculating queen takes b5, and then rook takes a2, he has rook g7 there. I have completely missed that because everything would be hanging. And if after queen takes b5 I play bishop c6, he can just go back. Yeah, that is something I missed altogether, but he takes. Okay, then I can take piece and knight probably. Because now I also cover the d7 square, so the rook can never go here. He's giving me the opportunity to think on his time a little bit, because otherwise I don't have enough time to calculate everything. But how do you defend the I thought the move is knight to d2, but now I realize that the knight is hanging there, so the knight has to go like e1 or h4. h4 I'm probably gonna take it, and e1, yeah, maybe that's fine. And my idea is probably to go rook a3, queen a5, something like that, put even more pressure on this knight, on the c3 pawn, create new threats, because remember, especially in rapid and blitz, you always want to create difficulties for your opponent, otherwise it's gonna be too simple for him to play. Maybe he wants just to play knight b4, but I guess I'm gonna take knight d5, I'm taking it, then I have knight x3. Okay, so my opponent plays knight b4, and I guess it means that I can take here. Hopefully I'm not blundering, and I don't really have time to calculate everything. But I don't really see how do you stop knight takes c3. I mean, that's hanging twice. If knight jumps somewhere, and it's also attacking the queen, I mean, that's a threat you can never ignore. Queen takes b5. Yeah, but I can still take it, right? Can also play bishop takes b4, rook a1. Can play rook a1 in the first place. Okay, let's save the check for the future. Because now I'm also attacking the knight on b4. Don't really get his plan altogether, to be honest. But I feel that it should be winning for black now. The bishop is opened, this bishop is opened, this rook is going to a1 anyway. There are so many threats in there, and also he's low on time. Queen takes e5. Now I'm gonna start with check in every case, because I want to, yeah, make sure that those pieces are not going forward. Now I guess I can just exchange, and I have knight e2 check. Wait a second, I wanted to just take the knight, but knight e2 seems to be a checkmate. Yeah, okay, that's a nice one in the end. So hopefully you enjoyed this game. Hopefully it was instructive for you. You could see that this opening is very promising for black. And yeah, write in the comments what you think about this game, and see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.